You step into a city where the air itself feels wrong. It's thick, heavy, almost oily, as if something invisible has rotted and spread through every alley, every home, every breath. You don't know it yet, but this is the moment the Black Death has already won. The markets are silent. The churches echo. The streets, if you can still call them streets, are crowded with bodies wrapped in whatever cloth the living could find. You see wagons piled with the dead, and you hear bells that never seem to stop ringing. You notice smoke rising from every corner. People burn anything they can. Clothing, bedding, whole rooms. The stench is overwhelming. Smoke mixed with decay. And then you see him, a figure in long robes, a mask with a long beak shaped like a bird's skull, moving slowly through the carnage. People shrink back, not because he's dangerous, but because his presence means the disease has arrived. He's not a healer. He's a warning sign. You watch him step over corpses with calm indifference, and then he looks at you. That's when you realize something terrifying. If a plague doctor has been called in, your chances of surviving have already collapsed. But before you panic, you need to understand who this man actually is. You've seen the drawings and the Halloween costumes. Maybe you imagined plague doctors as elite medical professionals. Heroic, wise, mysterious figures who bravely marched into infected cities armed with groundbreaking knowledge. But the truth, it's much uglier and much more chaotic. Most plague doctors weren't doctors at all. Many had no training, no medical knowledge, and no idea how disease worked. They were hired because real physicians refused to go anywhere near an outbreak. Some plague doctors were failed surgeons, others were random men who needed money. And a shocking number were criminals offered the job because, frankly, nobody cared if they lived or died. You weren't hiring a healer. You were hiring someone disposable. City councils didn't expect these men to cure the sick. They expected them to document death, to count bodies, to witness suffering, to ensure wills were signed before it was too late, and too late usually meant within hours. So when you look at this masked figure and imagine noble sacrifice, you're really seeing a man who took a job nobody else wanted, a job designed to fail. And you haven't even seen his famous mask up close yet. You've probably wondered, why the bird mask? Why the beak? Why this theatrical, almost supernatural look? As the doctor comes closer, you can hear his breathing echo inside the leather helmet. He smells like vinegar and herbs. The beak is stuffed tightly with lavender, rosemary, mint, cloves, anything that smells strong enough to overpower the stench of death. Here's the irony. The mask wasn't designed to protect him from bacteria. Nobody even knew bacteria existed. According to medieval medical theory, disease was carried through bad air miasma. If the air smelled foul, it could poison you. So the doctor tried to filter out the smell, not the disease. And another twist, the iconic beak mask didn't even appear during the worst plague years of the 1300s. It became common in the 1600s, long after the Black Death had already burned through Europe. Its dramatic design makes people think plague doctors were brilliant innovators. In reality, they were guessing. Blindly, desperately, hopelessly guessing. You watch him adjust the glass lenses over his eyes. You wonder if this outfit gives him courage. Then you realize it probably just gives him a false sense of safety. Because the outfit isn't the worst part of his job. It's what he's actually here to do. You might think this masked figure spends his days treating patients, comforting the sick, offering hope. But most plague doctors spend their time with people who are already dead. Their main job wasn't healing. It was bookkeeping. They walked from house to house recording names, ages, causes of death, the appearance of buboes, the number of bodies inside. Imagine walking into a one-room home where an entire family has died. The smell hits you first. Then the silence. Then the heavy, suffocating certainty that these people were alive just a day or two ago. And now someone must document it. You watch the plague doctor mark a tally in his ledger. He doesn't check pulses. He doesn't ask questions. He only needs to know when to add another line. They also supervised quarantines hammering boards across doors, trapping the living inside with the dying. It wasn't cruelty, it was policy. But that didn't make it any less horrifying. Sometimes, when a victim showed signs of life, the doctor stayed anyway, not to help, but to confirm exactly when they died. And when he did attempt treatment, that's when things went from bleak to downright dangerous. You wake up one morning with a fever and a lump forming under your arm. You tremble as the doctor approaches because you know what comes next. He pulls out a knife not to defend himself, but to treat you. The standard cure for plague? Bloodletting. He opens your skin and drains your blood because he believes sickness is caused by imbalances, and blood is carrying the corruption. Next, he begins to cut your bubo. The lump bursts, releasing pus and blood. He wipes it with vinegar-soaked cloth, but that does nothing except sting. Then it gets worse. He takes a live frog or a chicken and presses it against the swollen wound. Some believed the animal would draw out the poison. The animal usually died within minutes, which they took as a sign that treatment worked. Mercury ointments were another option. They burned your skin, suffocated you with fumes, and poisoned you slowly. Sweating treatments were popular too, wrapping you in blankets until you nearly passed out, hoping the plague would leave your body through your pores. Nothing helped. Nothing could help. And every time the doctor touched you, he risked infecting himself. So why did anyone take this job in the first place? You look at the plague doctor and wonder, what kind of person wakes up and says, yes, I'll walk into a city filled with death for a living? The truth is, the job attracted people at the edges of society. Poor men, desperate men, outsiders, foreigners with nothing to lose. Sometimes even convicted criminals who were promised payment or reduced sentences if they survived the outbreak. City governments offered perks to lure recruits, high salaries, housing, food, and an unusual legal immunity that protected doctors from certain crimes. Why? Because they expected the job to kill them, and they didn't want to haggle over details. Most plague doctors lived in isolation. Nobody wanted to touch them, speak to them, or breathe near them. Their clothing marked them as cursed. Children hid from them. Adults avoided eye contact. Even other doctors refused to sit with them at meals. You can't help but feel a strange pity. These men weren't villains. They were victims too caught between desperation and death. And unfortunately, most of them didn't last long. You watch the doctor walk through the street, and for the first time, you notice how he moves. Slowly, heavily, as if every step is harder than the last. The suit makes him sweat constantly. The mask restricts his breathing. The thick robes, meant to protect him, trap heat and moisture. Imagine wearing leather and waxed cloth for hours in a humid city filled with bonfires. But the real danger isn't the heat. It's the fleas. Fleas in bedding, fleas on clothing, fleas on rats. They bite him again and again, burrowing through fabric that was never designed to stop insects. Each bite carries Yersinia pestis, the real killer, the microscopic assassin nobody knew existed. Many plague doctors collapsed while working. Others died alone in their quarters, removed from society to prevent further spread. Some lasted weeks. A rare few survived multiple outbreaks, but not because of the suit, because of luck. You realize something grim. The plague doctor isn't a symbol of hope. He's a symbol of how little hope there was. But why did all these attempts at protection fail so completely? You stand beside the plague doctor as he lifts his mask for a moment, desperate for fresh air. That alone could kill him. But even if he kept the mask on, the suit would still fail because it was designed around the wrong idea. Everyone believed plague was caused by corrupted air, so they burned herbs, lit fires, covered windows, drenched rooms in vinegar. Nothing they did targeted the real threat. Fleas carrying plague bacteria. Plague spread through bites, through rats traveling on ships and carts, through flea-infested clothing, through unsanitary streets and rotting trash. Bloodletting and boil cutting didn't cure illness. They opened wounds that allowed more bacteria in. The doctor's stick didn't keep distance. He still walked through the same flea-filled homes. Everything he did, every technique, every tradition, every theory was wrong. You can't help but wonder how many lives might have been saved if someone had connected the dots. But here's the twist. Some things actually did work, even if nobody understood why. You follow the doctor to the edge of the city, where guards block the gate. They refuse entry to anyone without authorization. They're enforcing quarantine, a word from the Venetian quaranta giorni, meaning 40 days. Ships suspected of carrying plague had to wait offshore. People from infected towns were isolated. Goods were inspected or burned. None of this was based on germ theory. It was based on patterns people observed. Plague traveled with movement, so limiting movement slowed plague. Burning clothes worked because it destroyed fleas completely by accident. Closing borders helped because it reduced flea migration again by accident. Even mass burials, horrifying as they were, helped stop the disease from lingering in crowded homes. You realize the only things that helped were the things nobody understood, which makes it even stranger that plague doctors became the symbol of the era. The plague doctor pauses to rest. You stare at the silhouette, the long beak, the black robes, the unnervingly calm posture. It looks theatrical, like a costume from a nightmare. And in a way, that's exactly what it became. Artists of the 17th century loved drawing plague doctors. Their exaggerated masks, dark shapes, and eerie anonymity turned them into symbols of death itself. Eventually, the image drifted into carnivals, theater, and even comedy. Over time, the grotesque became iconic. Today, the plague doctor appears in horror games, Halloween decorations, memes, tattoos, cosplay. He's everywhere. But almost nobody knows the real story, that he spent more time recording corpses than saving lives, and that his famous mask was less protection and more perfume dispenser. You look at him one more time and see not a healer, not a monster, but a tragic figure caught between superstition and science. Which brings us to the biggest contrast of all, the world you live in now. If you got the plague today, yes, it still exists. You'd go to a hospital, get antibiotics, and walk out alive. Almost every time. The bacterium that devastated continents now collapses under modern medicine. You live in a world where disease is understood, tracked, fought with precision. A world of sterilization, vaccinations, microscopes, and scientific method. Imagine telling a medieval plague doctor that boiling water kills invisible organisms, or that tiny creatures smaller than dust spread disease. He would think you were insane or a sorcerer. You suddenly realize how far humanity has come, how much suffering was necessary for knowledge to grow, and how lucky you are to live in a world where doctors don't need leather masks filled with flowers. But don't get too comfortable, because the Middle Ages have far worse medical horrors waiting for you. The plague doctor walks away, disappearing into the smoke. You feel a strange emptiness watching him go, a mix of fear, pity, and fascination. He's the embodiment of an era trapped between myth and reality, where people fought death with perfume, superstition, and hope. You survived the encounter, for now, but only because you're watching from a safe distance in the 21st century. Because if you were taken to a real medieval hospital, you wouldn't last an hour. Next time, you step inside a medieval infirmary and instantly regret it.